In today's video, we are going to use a case study to bring retirement planning to life. We'll use the case of Tom and Leanne, and I'm going to work with the cash flow planning software that I use with clients in my day job. Hopefully it gives you some food for thought when it comes to your own retirement plans. Hi, my name's Andrew. I'm a chartered financial planner, and if you're new here, I started this channel to bring my insights as a financial advisor to a wider audience. So if that sounds like your thing, tap that subscribe button for plenty more to come in future. To introduce our case study clients today, we have Tom and Leanne. Both still working at present, married with 2 children, but thinking about the possibility of retirement around the point that Tom reaches age 60, and their main priority is seeing how feasible this would be and whether there's any actions that they need to be taking in the run-up to that to make it possible. Their current financial picture sets out something like this. They jointly own their home, which they would like to remain in for the long term and ideally have the mortgage cleared on entering retirement. They're both still in employment, with Tom earning £70,000 per annum and Leanne £38,000 per year, and they both are active in their workplace pensions as part of this. Leanne has active membership in the local government pension scheme, which is a career average defined benefit scheme, and Tom has his group personal pension with him and his employer paying in, which has about £35,000 as a balance now. Tom also has his SIP, which has about £550,000 invested within this. He's not contributing to that plan at present, but they are both anticipating full state pensions when the time is due for those as well. From a savings and investments perspective, Tom has about £55,000 in a stocks and shares ISA, and jointly they have about £20,000 in cash savings as a bit of a reserve for rainy days. Once we started to explore what a good retirement looks like for Tom and Leanne, we were able to narrow in on the objectives that matter to them most, starting with travelling more. So whilst they've been in employment with full-time roles, they feel like they've not been able to do as much as they could do if they were free from work. So naturally they're keen to see the parts of the world that they feel like they haven't been able to see whilst in employed roles. They've got a big milestone anniversary coming up, so we'd love to take the children and some of the wider family out to Cyprus and enjoy that milestone event with the family. In addition to their general kind of holiday, city break kind of stuff, they'd like to maintain that standard of living that they've had in the run-up to this point. Now, they do feel like they'll scale back on the travelling a little bit later in life as they naturally kind of slow down, and they are willing to make some assumptions about how that might look. And on top of this, ideally, they'll be able to help their 2 daughters, Sarah and Mia, onto the housing ladder with gifts towards their deposit. But fundamentally, the most important objective is maintaining their lifestyle, remaining in the family home, and really just not having money worries as they stop earning and start relying upon their assets to live. We then work through the numbers on this, putting some amounts to those objectives, as you can see from the figures here, and we then built a timeline with some of the milestone events, the one-offs, which may change slightly, but Tom and Leanne are comfortable working to these assumptions for now. Now, before we started looking at projections to see where they land with this, I'd asked Tom and Leanne to fill out an investment risk questionnaire to help gauge their natural tolerance towards investment risk. And based on the results of this, you might say the results were middle of the road. And from myself as a planner, that was a starting point of 60% allocated towards owning companies within their investment portfolio, and the other 40% of that being on the more defensive end of fixed interest bonds or otherwise. Now, this is purely just a starting point for discussion as we go into the financial planning discussions. With all of this information factored in, and of course making some assumptions about the future, we can then build out and project into the future with a cash flow model that shows how feasible it might be for Tom and Leanne to achieve their retirement goals based on everything we know now. Within the first draft of our financial plan, which I'm using the cash flow model here to illustrate, we've worked to the assumption of Tom ceasing work at that ideal age of 60, and Leanne would tie in with that and retire at the same point. She'd also then take her local government pension scheme, which we've estimated will provide about £6,000 per annum as a pension, with a tax-free lump sum of £40,000 if Leanne takes it at this point. She could choose to defer it until later on. But alongside this, I've also assumed that Tom will gradually draw down on his pension pots through the means of flexi access drawdown, gradually taking tax-free cash alongside income, phasing that essentially, rather than taking the tax-free cash of 25% all at the outset. Importantly, I've also assumed a net 5% annual growth rate on the invested funds that they have, Tom's pensions and stocks and shares ISA. Now, of course, any investment growth rate assumed is one of the key variables, and I'm starting here with that broadly 60% equity portfolio and going for kind of 2% annually above my inflation assumption at 3% per annum. And what this first draft of the financial plan shows is that Tom and Leanne may be running out of assets, exhausting their liquid funds around about the time that Tom reaches age 80, which isn't exactly ideal given their average life expectancies would go beyond this. Leanne's out to age 87 based on national statistics. So from a first draft, it's not exactly hitting the ideal that Tom and Leanne would like to see. Now, for some clients, they would be absolutely fine with this. They might think, well, I've got no chance of seeing age 87, and I'd rather enjoy my younger active years, and if need be, I'll adjust later down the line, I'll step back my expenditure, but I'm happy to set off on that course, knowing the risks. Ultimately, that is your decision as an individual. But in the case of Tom and Leanne, they just wanted a little bit more reassurance, a little bit more comfort in the plan, and if they could get a bit more of a margin for error, it would make them feel less uneasy going into retirement and giving up their paid jobs. One of the points that really helped bring this home for Tom and Leanne was when we stress tested the plan and looked at randomizing the investment returns, because we know that investment returns don't come in this nice straight 5% net line. There will be good years, bad years, ups and downs along the way. So as we randomized that in thousands of different scenarios, it really only gave them about a 44% chance of the money, their liquid investments, lasting until age 87 for Leanne, down to about a 36% chance if you push that age out to 95. And again, they just wanted a little bit more comfort in those numbers. So this next bit is the essence of financial planning. What levers could Tom and Leanne pull at? What adjustments could they make in their life or finances in order to give them a more robust plan, a plan that they feel more certain in, something that has more probability of success? Now, the first and perhaps most obvious option that we might take to help make this financial plan work for Tom and Leanne would be cutting back their expenditure. Now, definitely not ideal. They've set out the life that they want to live in retirement, and we really don't want to restrict that. But there might be a discussion to be had about trimming back the travelling budget or cutting back on some of the bigger one-offs. And if that works, if that solves their plan and they're happy to make that trade-off, it would mean that they don't have to adjust other things in their life. So it is a good starting point to discuss of how important are these figures, these numbers, these budgets. I've used the cash flow software to show them that as a rough rule of thumb, based on the numbers and assumptions here, they could probably spend about £47,000 per annum throughout retirement from 60 in today's money out until age 95 and kind of nicely run out of money at that point, still owning the equity in their home. Yes, it's built on assumptions, but if they're willing to be a little bit flexible about that spending throughout retirement, it does give a starting point for a broader budget on what they might spend. The second option we've discussed is working a little longer, being a bit flexible on the retirement point, because the cash flow shows that with just one additional year of them both working, that with the extra money they'd accrue within their pensions, and importantly the fact that they wouldn't be spending for an extra year, 2027 in this plan, that compounding effect of those two aspects means that the projection runs out to age 95 and kind of nicely runs out of money again at that point. Another option on the table is investing more in the run-up to retirement. So whilst they're still working, we looked at their budget now and we spoke about the potential of Tom topping up his pension contributions, which would be very tax efficient as a higher rate taxpayer. And with just paying in an extra £16,000 a year, which they've got scope for in their plan, Tom can get a top up to his pension of £20,000 gross. He'll get a bit of tax relief back as a higher rate taxpayer, so it costs him net less than £16,000 effectively. And with this being done all the way in the run up to the planned retirement age at 60, it changes that default plan from running out of money at around age 80 and pushing that out to about age 86 based on the assumptions used. So it's certainly something to be considered, another trade-off as an option that might be done alongside some other levers. Another key option on the table was talking about the underlying investment portfolio that Tom and Leanne set off with and hopefully maintain throughout retirement. We've defaulted this to a 60% equity portfolio, but the cash flow system will show us that if they could achieve an additional roughly just over 1% a year, that the plan would work, if you like, out until age 95. Now, again, this is not by any means certain, and it's not something we can control in advance, but looking at hundreds of years of investment data and talking through the scenarios, if they were willing to accept a little bit more equity risk, a bit more volatility, then this is something that could potentially enhance their probability of success throughout their retirement. There will be other options on the table throughout retirement for Tom and Leanne, including things like downsizing or releasing equity from their home if they felt comfortable with that at certain points. Now, as you can see, these are very personal decisions. Tom and Leanne might choose to work an extra year where somebody else would have chosen to invest more and change the equity. You have the options that are personal to you, and nobody else can say whether they are right or wrong. Financial planning is an ongoing job where you don't set and forget. You check in annually, you make adjustments, and you go from there. Hopefully this case study has given you some insight into how that can look and how that works. If you're looking for financial advice in the UK, look for an independent planner, much like myself. You can message me at the contact address here if you would like to see whether we're a good fit. But hopefully these videos do give a great insight for those that are also looking to personally plan their retirement, DIY their drawdown and investment strategies. And I thank you as always for spending the time to watch this video, and I hope to see you again for a future one.